Hi, and welcome again to this latest episode of the Plata Ward 4 Update Podcast. This is David Jenkins, La Plata Town Council member from Ward 4, and your host for this podcast and videos, now available on YouTube and YouTube Music. I wanted to follow up from my previous podcast, which I posted on October 8th, entitled La Plata 2025 Election. This also included why I'm not running for re-election in 2025, and also one of my greatest regrets, two things. One, the lack of a real Town of La Plata citizen engagement participation program, and from what I thought was little or minimal citizen engagement by the community in their town government. So while I was critical of the town's poor engagement process, again in my view, I also called out residents for their lack of participation in town elections, town council meetings, planning commission meetings, and other board and commissions that the town has. I did then and still now recognize that government or participating in government is tough, it can be boring, and it takes time. I also know firsthand, having experienced it myself, the requirements of work and family commitments. So I fully understand that. But unfortunately, just because I post stuff on social media, like this podcast and the video and my Facebook page, I'm not always right. I am trying to provide my opinions and perspectives. In addition, I've had the wrong idea that somehow, because I post stuff, that listeners or readers will agree with me. Well, that is not correct, and that's a bad assumption on my part. But I had intended and still do. The reason why I do these is to provide information and my views and perspectives, both as a current La Plata Town Council member, but also from my experience in government as a professional planner, and also in the private side as well. So perhaps I've strayed a little bit from my original intent, but I wanted to tell you I found and would learn a different perspective from a recent post I made on my Facebook page, and a quick response from one of my readers on my Facebook post. I do post information on my Facebook page about planning and development issues, as well as pertinent issues or articles about walking, pedestrian safety, safe streets and highways, and related information. Again, I'm also, during these posts, have been critical of the town, Charles County, and other governmental entities. And therefore, I do share this information with other community-minded Facebook pages, specifically 2 Facebook pages in communities that are within my Ward 4. So earlier this week, actually back in October 15th, I posted on my Facebook page, and I shared it with the 2 community groups on their Facebook page, a February 12th, 2018 article entitled 5 Strong Towns, of which I'm a member of and have been for several years. The article was entitled, How 3 Different Towns Are Creating Safer, Slower Streets. So again, this is just a number of articles I post about from other examples of how other communities implement programs or activities. In this instance, how 3 different towns were trying to make slower and safer streets. And because I know this is a huge issue for many La Plata neighborhoods, including my own here in Clark's Run. And again, I shared this with the Facebook pages of my 2 community groups within my ward. So when I posted it, within hours, I got an immediate response. So let me just quote that. I won't give the person's name because that wouldn't be fair, but I will quote it. Quote, "It's too late. These ideas should have been discussed a long time ago. Shame on this town for allowing the developers to ruin it. Traffic is a nightmare." End of quote. A very powerful statement. And while I disagree with the body of the comment, because I do believe it's never too late, and I do believe positive change can happen, it will take time and it will take effort. It will take community as well as town engagement and leadership to make that change. But unfortunately, I took this post way too personal, and I immediately wanted to respond with a knee-jerk reaction and response, and probably not in a very positive manner. So I did the right thing. I took a deep breath. I walked away for a while, took a moment, and kind of reflected on that comment. I really thought about it and what it really meant. And then I remembered an article that I read several years ago from Strong Towns. And that article is entitled Staying Strong. It was published in November of 2017. So I'm just going to go briefly the next couple of slides, just quote from that article, and I'll provide a link to the article because it is very good, I think very good, and provided me with a much different viewpoint and perspective about citizen engagement. First, again, quote, we all need to understand, first and foremost, that you don't need to attend a meeting to care. You don't need to be involved in the system that has been set up for you in order to be involved in your place, in this case, La Plata. A base assumption of the Strong Towns movement is that the city is ours. And I've said that before, maybe in a different way. To go on, we are not relegated to secondary citizens simply because we're not following the process set forth by those in power. So I'm guilty of assuming that, because the comment that I just quoted from a resident, while harsh in her opinion, it nevertheless really indicated that they do care. That person cares about La Plata, and that's important. So then let's go on to the next slide. We can talk about this one real quick. And this is true, and you probably know this. City council meetings are incredibly unfair environments for a member of the general public wanting to be heard. The layout of most council chambers is intimidating and isolating. A person asking to speak has to come up to the podium, stand there alone, and face an assembled group of officials who are seated behind an intimidating table and often elevated above the crowd. Our chambers are that way, which is hard. In my city, that is the city where Chuck Marhon's from, the founder of Strong Towns in Minnesota, they are on television to boot. Ours are recorded. Our meetings are recorded. So I've seen grown men shake with fear when they asked to address the council in this way. Hard to believe, but many years ago I had a real fear of speaking in public. I've learned to overcome that, but I understand it's not for everybody. Let's go on. This is the home field for staff and the city council. They had the benefit of having spent most of the time in this abnormal environment. They know how the protocols work, how to control the floor, and how to direct the discussion. They have inside information that members of the public don't have, adding to the asymmetric power structure. I will never fault someone for not subjecting themselves to that, no matter how important their cause. And again, that is true because we have inside information, because I put a lot of time and work reading about the issues. And that doesn't mean that you don't, but it takes time. It's long and it's hard, so it's not a fair way. So I've been certainly guilty of that assumption. And again, this provides a different perspective for me as well. This next slide is also important. And I'll quote, the format of a council meeting creates feedback that is disjointed and unhelpful. There's little opportunity for back and forth dialogue. Complex issues must be discussed in limited time frames. Members of the public are often given cursory slots at the beginning and at the end of the agenda, and frequently leave the feeling as if they were being patronized or tolerated, not listened to. I don't blame anyone for finding little value in spending their time this way. That is frankly a harsh truth. At the beginning of our agendas, there's a public forum on the agenda, and I guess I've been critical for people not doing that. But I understand because you're only given 3 minutes, and that's all you get. And there's no dialogue. We don't get to answer your questions or comment on your comments or whatever. So that is very, frankly, not a very good way to get feedback. And I remember a public hearing several years ago on a very controversial project. And we had a great citizen turnout because they were opposed to it. And each person who signed up got 3 minutes. They did the smart thing. They had a spokesman speak for them, but they also came up individually. But again, there was no feedback from us from the council because it was a public hearing. There wasn't any discussion. And I have found even in the town council meetings, we don't have enough discussion among ourselves because I learned a lot by listening and hearing other people's perspectives. So this is, for me, again, an enlightening perspective that I'm sharing with you. This next one is, quote, I also don't blame anyone for not, quote, putting their money where their mouth is, end of quote, and agreeing to serve on a committee. I look over the list of committees here in my city, and again, the author lives in Minnesota, and there aren't many focused on the things I actually find important. Where's the committee to stop annexations? That's an interesting comment. And provide financial analysis on mega projects. Is there a task force working on fixing stroads? What he means by stroads are high-speed streets or street that's been made into a large road that people speed to it, so they call it a stroad. And of course not. We don't have that. Those committees. Committees are often life-sucking entities for those who do not have a special interest they are protecting. Not only that, the best ones I've been on, the author, have been on deal with weighty issues that have deep discussions and collect information on policy implications and then report to the council, which abruptly ignores the recommendation if it is not what they want to do. Committees have their place, but nobody should ever be criticized for not serving on one. I have been guilty of making that critique. That's obviously wrong. Now that I've had time to think about it and read articles like this that I'm sharing with you today, you don't necessarily have to be on a committee to be engaged, and I'll get to that in a moment. So finally, when did public speaking, or when did speaking out in publicly obligate someone to run for office? It doesn't. Strong town advocates should feel comfortable advocating for better government without having to be the government. Most people are not good politicians. They will not be good council members. It takes a special skill set. Follow your calling, but don't get bullied into a run for office or shut up decision. Again, I've been guilty of telling people that, which is wrong. Running for office is not for everybody. I don't think I have a special skill set. What I do have is experience being in government at different levels. That is the local level, as a planner for a local agency, a regional agency, and then also involved in state agencies. But I've also been on the public side. So I guess I felt when I ran in 2021 that I could offer those kinds of experiences. But again, this is to me a very enlightening and again another enlightening perspective about participation. And then finally, what does this all mean? And what do strong town members advocate for? And this summarizes that. And you'll see the word community here a lot. Actively involved in their community, although not necessarily in local government. Knows their immediate neighbors and works with them to resolve conflict and build strong neighborhood. Seeks connections with others outside their neighborhood as a way to gain knowledge, build understanding, and strengthen the community. And finally, honors the work of past generations, respects the needs of the current generation, protects the interests of future generations. So again, I would emphasize the word community, and what I used the word earlier, the term earlier, bottom up versus top down. It is from the community up to make changes versus just a government top down demanding it or somehow forcing it on you. And then finally, this final slide is a brief summary of the Strong Towns approach. So the standard approach has been for many generations and how America has developed over the last 50 years is there are large capital investments, roads, highways, sewer plants, whatever, large residential projects, a reliance on grants and debt. We have some debt here in the town, not a lot, but we have some. Yeah, we have used grants. The community is focused on state and federal grant programs. We have taken advantage of those from the state as well as from the feds. And finally, it does create at times large term liabilities. We do have some of that with respect to paying back some loans and some other capital investment. But the Strong Towns approach looks at small tactical projects at the neighborhood level, local empowerment responsibility. It's your neighborhood. You should look. They are empowered to ways to improve their community. is, again, community focused on incrementally improving what is already present. For instance, here in Clark's Run and probably many neighborhoods, there are folks who want to create events. They want to have more green space, or to provide more landscaping, or perhaps a way to slow down traffic. Again, that can be done at the community level and moved up or pushed up to the town, and I'll get to that in a moment. And then also, finally, this approach builds local resilience while improving the quality of life. So I just wanted to briefly share a little comeuppance for me in reading this article, and again, a completely different perspective, that you don't necessarily have to be on a committee or run for office or attend meetings to care about your town. I know there are many people that I've come across, and not only in my ward, but other wards across the town, do care about their community. Otherwise, they wouldn't critique us or criticize us, and that's positive. So that's a good start. So I hope to provide you in upcoming podcasts and videos examples from other communities and neighborhoods from other cities and towns that have tried different projects to improve their neighborhood that perhaps could be tried here. And so while the town does recognize some of these efforts, in the sense that the town does have small grants that they provide to community associations for different things they do, but perhaps we could do more in recognizing those communities, but also encourage more neighborhood projects by different programs, and perhaps provide even some financial support. So that's why I hope to provide in upcoming podcasts and videos some examples how other towns and communities are working together to do this. So again, thanks for listening and watching the podcasts and videos. Again, as always, email me with your questions and comments at djenkins@townlaplata.org. Again, thank you for your time and listening. Stay well and stay safe. Thank you.